Hey guys, so I am joined by my mini boss, Aaliyah Janae, and by one of my best friends, Liz. And she is the creator of Curly Buddha, which is all about intuitive astrology and how we can kind of integrate that into our daily lives to flow with the planetary changes. I have her here because we're going to discuss a little bit deeper into the specific Mercury retrograde and go into what Mercury retrograde in the sign of Gemini really means and what we can expect. I wanted to bring Liz on here so that we can get some insight from an intuitive astrologer and get a little bit more guidance about this retrograde period.
Yay! Hey, everybody. I'm really blessed to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Today, we're talking about this season's Mercury retrograde, May 2021. Mercury will be retrograde in the sign of Gemini. Now, in general, when we talk about retrogrades, we're talking about the seemingly backward movement of a planet. Mercury is one of the smallest planets in our solar system. When we talk about Mercury going retrograde, that's when we notice some potential issues with communication. This particular Mercury retrograde, Mercury is stationed in the sign of its rulership, which is Gemini. So this particular retrograde is a really significant one, I think. I think this retrograde, we're going to see a lot of potential issues, potential challenges, but also potential opportunities for growth in how we communicate with other people and how we really are able to communicate the way we communicate and, the modes that we use to communicate, right? That's something that, I want to talk about is essentially our interpersonal communication. So how do we talk to each other? And also how do we talk to ourselves? What kinds of messages are we rallying around, and what kind of messages are we trying to share? And also, like, what kinds of knowledge and information matters to us and why? Gemini is an air sign. It's a mutable air sign, and it's really the planet of communication. So this particular retrograde is really going to focus on how we communicate, what we're communicating about, what kinds of information is important to us, what kinds of information is not important to us, things we don't really care about, things like that. And also, I just want to touch on how, Mercury was actually in Taurus at the beginning of May and transitioned to the sign of Gemini. So there's already been a shift in our communication style this month. And now that we're in Mercury and Gemini, the pattern and the speed of communication has kind of ramped up a little bit. So one major takeaway, I think, from this is us being really discerning and mindful about what we're sharing on social media, what we're retweeting, what we're engaging in, what, all these sorts of methods that we have now for communication, how are we really engaging with them in ways that make us feel good, that make us feel whole, and that make us feel safe? And I think also we'll be asking ourselves, what sorts of ideas, information need to have a voice and need to have a platform. I think this particular retrograde being in Gemini is really going to bring that to the forefront. What are we really talking about? What are we really sharing? What kinds of information do we need to share? And what kinds of things maybe should we think twice before we share, right?
I've definitely been feeling intuitively that there's a lot about how we interact with others, taking responsibility for ourselves and how we, share our ideas, how we share our emotions even. Yeah, just taking personal responsibility, how we talk about ourselves and treat ourselves, talk to ourselves in that line of self-care and, nurturing ourselves, making sure we're safe and whole and good.
Exactly. I mean, I think I think this retrograde is going to bring up a lot of those themes. And to your point, I just want to also mention the fact that this particular retrograde, Mercury is in Gemini and it will be squaring Neptune, which is in Pisces. So usually, retrogrades, especially Mercury retrograde, is a time for us to kind of slow down, reflect on what's going on in our lives, have some self-reflection time, kind of take a moment for ourselves. But the fact that this particular retrograde will be squaring Neptune in Pisces is even more of an indicator to fact check and to slow down, and also to not necessarily believe everything you see or read. Neptune is the planet of illusion. It's ruled by Pisces. It's a beautiful planet. It's a really spiritual planet, but it also has the ability to shape shift. So sometimes we might see something that seems one way, and then we'll return to it, in the next day or the next week. We'll see it again and we'll be like, oh, wait, that actually isn't at all representative of what I thought it was when I first looked at it.
Yes.
So this particular retrograde, I think we really have to be conscious of this idea, like, not everything that glitters is gold. Not everything that we see is as we want to see it. Or maybe on the other side, maybe what we want to see, we're projecting onto what we're seeing. So Neptune has that ability to kind of fog our perception or fog our vision of what is actually there, and can sometimes even make us believe things that are there that are not there.
Yeah.
So I think it's this particular retrograde is really important for us to really slow down, to know that sometimes even if it looks amazing, it might not be as amazing underneath the surface. And that's okay. That really, I think, like, overall, I think an important takeaway is, like, let's trust ourselves to know that we can discern what we see. We have the skills, we have the ability. Like, we don't have to fall victim to this concept that, we're going to get duped, but just to be aware, like, okay, now I need to kind of put, like, my glasses on and see, like, what is really there underneath the facade, right?
Yes, the ruling planet of Pisces is Neptune, right? And so both of those kind of bring in the element of, the dreamer and, like, just creating this, like, dreamland. But, Pisces can also edge into, like, I'm going to live in my dreamland and this is not reality, right? So far. And so I definitely see that, like, vibe when you're saying, is this real? Is this, like, solidly, is it what it looks like? Or is it just like this shiny exterior? And it's funny because I already recorded my pick a card for this Mercury retrograde. And a lot of the things that you are sharing with me now are themes that came up for different groups in my pick a card. And so whether it's discernment or all that glitters is not gold, and the trust, the trusting self, trusting your own intuition is such a big theme that I picked up reading the cards. And, you're getting from the planets and, the squares and all that good stuff. So thank you for sharing that piece with us as well.
Absolutely. I mean, retrogrades, particularly Mercury retrograde, is a really good time to slow down. So it's a perfect opportunity to take a moment to reassess the information that we consume and reassess the kinds of conversations that we have and the way we communicate, and to really, like, check in with ourselves and be like, am I communicating in a way that is authentic to me? Am I really, as you mentioned, like, tapping into my intuition? Am I really being conscious of myself and conscious of how I want to show up in the world? Like, even though, this time period might present some challenges, I think it's a really good opportunity for us to do that. And so, like, remember, like, ultimately we have the ability to kind of show up how we want to show up. So
Sure. Awesome. Well, in terms of, like, this specific retrograde, like, every retrograde brings its own challenges and kind of themes itself. And so with it being in Gemini, is there anything specifically that we need to be very, like, vigilant or aware of during this time period? Is there anything that it might show up more for the collective right now, knowing that we'll all have our personal journeys and our personal lessons? What is really showing up for the collective at this time period? What can we be aware of and just be, ready for?
yeah, well, I think going back to what we were just saying, I think it's so critical for us to just slow down.
Okay.
You know, we live in such a hyper connected community, a global community now, and that's amazing. There's so many ways to share our ideas and share our perspectives with other people, which is great. But also,
But
it's an opportunity. Yeah, also, it's an opportunity for us to really be mindful of the things that we're sharing, the things that we're talking about, the things that we're promoting. How are we, what is our responsibility to the information that we share? So I think if
yeah.
we can be conscious of that and we can vet the things that we're sharing a little more critically and a little more clearly, I think we'll find a benefit in that. And that would be my suggestion.
Awesome. Okay. That definitely resonates. Being able to take a breather, rejuvenate before moving forward. Anything else that you'd like to share with us just about this specific time? I know that there's a lot going on planetary wise, right? We can never just look at one planet or
Totally.
one movement when we're looking at what's going on in astrology or the cosmos, and like what else is going on right now that might impact just this retrograde period, further intensify any themes that we're seeing, or what might be going on in our personal lives and psyches for that matter.
Yeah, well, I think the other biggest thing, which, all the Astro bays are chatting about too, is the eclipse. It's eclipse season. The eclipse is happening this week as well. So with any eclipse, there's going to be a lot of unearthing. This is a lunar eclipse. So there's going to be a lot of emotional unearthing. Like, I like to think of it as kind of, maybe this is kind of a gross analogy, but like being emotionally constipated, and like the eclipse kind of like washes you out. Like, that's kind of how I think about eclipses, is it just unearths what is buried. So with that being so close to the retrograde, I mean, we're in the pre-retrograde shadow right now. We're going to have the eclipse. All these events together is really just telling us, slow down, be present in ourselves, check in with ourselves. What are we feeling? What are we really feeling? What are we really so anxious to talk about, share, tweet, post?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there more there? Is there more under the surface? So it's a lot happening. Like, it's a very busy time. But I think, we can move through it gracefully if we just take a second to slow down. So
Sure. Yeah, I definitely since learning more about like Mercury retrograde and just like the blessings that can come with retrogrades in general, I really like to look at them as things that don't need to be feared, but like they're definitely lessons to be learned during that time, and they can help create the blessings that we're looking to receive in our lives if we're able to just like flow with the planet. So as long as we're not like bumping up against, like the lessons, or like if you're trying to go and get everything done and move quickly and on a specific schedule, like, yeah, retrograde, specifically Mercury retrograde, is probably not going to be your friend. But if you can move with it and kind of get into what it's trying to teach you, slow down, like, try to stay on like one train of thought for a period of time, it can actually be very beneficial, and you can receive a lot of blessings from that.
Yeah, and just what you were just saying about staying on one train of thought, Gemini doesn't like
Gemini.
that.
Gemini does not like that.
Gemini's like, oh, one thing? Oh, I don't have time for that. I have like 10 million other things to do. So, it may be challenging. Like, it may be challenging for us to just take a step back, slow down, focus on one thing at a time. But I think there's a lot of really positive energy to be gained when we can kind of do that for ourselves during this time,
Sure.
and like you were saying, all of the kind of normal lessons or suggestions that come along with Mercury retrograde are like particularly relevant in this retrograde. So,
yeah,
technology wise, like, back up your tech. If you're going on a trip, double check your tickets. All those kind of like really practical things that I know you're talking about, like, that's so important for this particular retrograde too. So just, as a side note to everything that we're saying.
Especially like even to your point of like doing one thing at a time, right? And like that Gemini vibe, Gemini wants to have its hand in a lot of little things, and intuitive note I'm getting is just be careful with driving and with being on the road with any kind of motor vehicle, that you're not like texting and driving, or that you're just paying more attention, like don't have the music too loud, like necessarily. There's just an element of safety this specific retrograde that I'm feeling in terms of getting around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe that's also because of the square, as we were mentioning, like Neptune is a beautiful planet, but it also, as we were saying, has the ability to kind of obscure what's really there. So especially in terms of travel, be cautious that there might be an unexpected element along your travel plans. There might be some sort of, it could be anything, but just, taking that double, triple checking of like, do I have my ticket? Do I have my phone charged? Do I have all these things that I need to safely get from point A to point B? I think is going to be really important.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I love you. You know this, but thank you for sharing this with my YouTube family. Where can they find you if they want to connect with you and get some more intuitive astrology and get tapped into Curly Buddha?
Yeah, so it's at the Curly Buddha on Instagram, or you can also just visit me online at curlybuddha.com.
Awesome. Well, definitely check out Curly Buddha. I love Liz. She's just such an intuitive and astrology bae. So definitely check out her stuff. And thank you for being here with us today. So guys, I hope this gave you some insight to how to best utilize this Mercury retrograde, just so that you can receive those Mercury retrograde blessings, so that you can move through this time period smoothly. And definitely hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and also check out the What is Mercury retrograde teaching you tarot pick a card that I have that I will be sharing very soon, or that's already up. One of the two. Okay. I love you guys. Thank you, Liz. And I'll see you next time. Bye.